So I would like to start our final discussions and final reflections. And for this, we have invited a group of master students and PhD students from Gothenburg University and Chalmers. And this session will be led by Magnus Johansson, who is the director of the Skåne platform. Magnus is an assistant professor in environmental science at the Department of Urban Studies at our university. And his research centers on collaborative planning, collaborative management of urban commons, and collaborative learning processes in urban development. Magnus has also worked as an ongoing evaluator of urban developmental projects in Malmö and in the Gothenburg region. So please, Magnus, where are you? They are. Come to stage and bring with you the students, Ena Sredanovic, Johanna Selin, and Jakub Dvorak.
Is this working? Great. Thank you. We had two really intense days. We have discussed a lot, we learned a lot, we have got lots of impressions and thoughts. So we think a way to summarize this or to finalize this is to bring in some other voices, and maybe some voices that are slightly younger than the most of us here in the room, like me, for example, to give some perspectives or impressions or some ideas and maybe some good advices and suggestions to the host for the next year's conference, something to bring with them. So, please, welcome. I wonder if you could give a very short introductions of yourself, what you are doing, your name. Should you start, Jakub?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jakub Dvorak, and I'm a master's student at Chalmers, Design for Sustainable Development. I did my bachelor in architecture in Czech Republic, and now I focus on urban design and co-design. I try to combine these two together.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ena Sredanovic. I come from Croatia and I just graduated at a master program in architecture and urban design at Chalmers. And I did my bachelor's in Italy. And my projects are very much focused on social integration and participation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Johanna Selin. I'm a PhD candidate at the School of Public Administration at the University of Gothenburg. I have a background at the School of Public Administration, so the public sector is my main domain, so to speak, but I have a bachelor in environmental political science. And for now I'm very much interested in studying social sustainability in the context of an urban context, you could say it shortly. Yeah.
Good. I'm really, really curious about what's your overall impression of these 2 days? Johanna,
should I start? Yes. As coming from a context, the public administration field, research field, there aren't that many talking about these questions on a daily basis. So in that kind of sense, it's very interesting to come into this room where everyone is very devoted and engaged and very knowledgeable about these questions. So that's like one main thing, very, very general, I could say. And also how, even though we are from different backgrounds and so on, during these breakout sessions, for example, it was very clear to me, at least, that we do have very similar ways of thinking about things, even though we do have different experiences and different ages and everything like that. So I think that's one thing I will take with me. Yeah, just a short. Yeah.
And you, Ena?
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to participate in the past 2 days. And there is much to take in, and I learned a lot and also questioned a lot of things, since I've learned that we are supposed to raise activists instead of planners and always to critically reflect. Yeah, I guess it raised a lot of new questions in my head and in how I want to work in the future. and it's been very interesting and inspirational. Yeah.
Just very short, what kind of questions?
Like, there has been a lot of talk about co-production and the benefits of it, but in my humble student experience, I have faced 2 projects where actually with co-production method, or I would also agree that it's more of an ethos than a method itself. And there is a lot of, I wish we had more time this morning to talk about obstacles of co-production as well, because for me that was a very important argument to discuss, since, yeah, as I said, in my humble experience, there have been a lot of difficulties when it comes to implementation of certain co-production processes and so on, yeah. So it raised a lot of questions how to, yeah.
We will have time to go back.
Yeah.
Your overall impressions?
Yeah, I will start with my first impression. My first impression was, am I too young for that when I came here? Because there was too many people with too many knowledge. But then I found it very enhancing for me, and I actually took a lot from that. I discovered many different approaches on these complex but very urgent issues, and I'm really happy that there's many of you who are dealing with them and who are taking care of them. That's like our responsibility for that.
But that's also interesting. Do you think, is this the right audience?
Yeah, we had a discussion in the background with the other students. If there's anyone missing, if there should be the public, the people who we actually plan for, or who we design for our processes, and then of course if there should be more the civic organizations, or if there should be some other group of people. Maybe, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. We heard that universities are supposed to be used as living hubs to, yeah, and we are at a university. We are at Chalmers University of Technology. I almost wish to see more students, because I can only think so many that could benefit so much from this conference that is happening now, and that it's very relevant for their education and for their theses that are ongoing now. So yeah, I agree upon that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked like what kind of audience are we talking to with the one we are invited to this conference, and also that's connected to what do we want with this conference. Really, do we want to talk amongst ourselves in the, like when we talk about ourselves as academics and like practitioners in like planning or something like that, or do we want to talk to the people that we have been framing it during this conference? I think so that would be different kind of conferences. I think we want to speak with everyone or a specific group, and why do we want it to a specific group or everyone? Like maybe that is something also to elaborate on. Yeah.
So more students maybe, or more NGOs maybe, or
yeah, if that is what you want with the conference, that depends. I would say. What is the...
But from your perspectives, you are in the end of your education, and you're planning for your careers. Is there some issue or topic that you would like Mistra said, well, that would be interesting, and that's something that I would like to learn more about?
I like I could say there have been a lot of focus on the inclusion of the dialogues with civilians, for example, NGOs. But at the same time, we talked about like co-production, but at the same time, I was a bit lacking with like what are the structures or the frames we do this. We haven't talked about maybe we do act under political frames, so like there are policies involved in this as well, which will frame and decide a bit of what is possible for us to do. Like, and I was a bit lacking that kind of problematization maybe of this. Like you can include a lot of people, but how much can you include in relation to some kind of like certain frames and so on. Like maybe that's also because I'm from that background where I focus in on the public sector, and there are always politicians involved in that, and for me it's kind of a normal thing to look for when I look at things. But maybe something like that. Maybe where are we because my picture of this is we aren't free to do whatever we want. We do have some things to relate to all the time. And what are those things? Maybe they can take part of this discussion as well.
Is there something, Jakub, is something that you would like to learn more about? Oh, that is a question that should be brought up.
Yeah, I think it's the question of leadership of this co-production process. I think there's a huge challenge in what sort of leaders we actually want for this process. Because now we at the conference, I believe that we agree on the values that we want, and we kind of know what to implement, but we don't know actually who should do that. Like what are the new competences that we should have, and the knowledge that we should have in order to be able to implement these things, in order to be able to communicate with multiple stakeholders, groups, and these things. So I think maybe more like a practical session on leadership and the ways how to carry it out would be very useful.
You?
Yeah, I don't know. I was very today in the morning we had a conference about at 10, and there was a big picture behind the speakers, and it's Gothenburg as a city equal for everybody, equal city, social sustainability, and there has been a lot of talk about that and about the future objectives of the city, the future planning, how the city can become equal for everybody. I would really like to know how. Like for me, the big question is how is that being done? Like when I see the picture Gothenburg equal for everybody, I was very curious to see how and to see more concrete examples on what is being done regarding that. Who is being addressed to get the solutions? What stakeholders are being included? Because, like for example, we are dealing now with we are living in an extremely segregated city, and we all know that. And now we are also dealing with the refugee crisis. A lot of newly arrived immigrants are coming to the city, and we have to plan also for that. We have to plan a city where equality of opportunity must be a #1 priority, and that's being mentioned. So that's a thing that I also try to address in my master thesis of how can architectural design influence the integration of newly arrived refugees. But then my process was very participatory based. I tried to include refugees and young students into the process, and that has been an extremely hard, a very, very demanding process. And I would like to know maybe more how. I mean, I know you learn project by project, but experimenting sometimes can be very dangerous. So there is also this ethical responsibility that we carry behind our experiments. We are dealing with human beings here. We are dealing with real life. So for me, how to do that and like this distribution of power, all of a sudden I as a thesis student had a lot of power to decide, regardless that I included many stakeholders, but I decided who to listen. So it's like all these obstacles to co-production for me are very interesting, and that's why I would really like, even if it's a very academical conference maybe, and we get to hear a lot about, but I still think it's very important to hear the people who have maybe, for example, in Kisumu, Mistra Urban Futures has many projects that involve local community, and I was very lucky that I was in Kisumu as a part of Reality Studio, and I did a project there. And I really wish to hear the voices of the communities that have been involved in the process, to hear, okay, how have their voices been reflected into the final result? So that's what I would like to, maybe I was too long. But
no, that's more how, and we also talk about the ethos of co-production, and maybe we should talk about the ethics in co-production, and also what kind of ethical traps should we avoid. But you also heard a lot, because this has been very, very intense days. What have inspired you during these 2 days? Because, continue.
I was very inspired. Like I've heard, if I'm not mistaken, one sentence in this conference that small individual projects are not enough anymore, but we have to think in systemic ways. And I agree, but I see in these small community-driven projects, if they sort of network themselves, I see so much success, like what Deborah was mentioning what's happening in Cape Town, what has happened in Dunga Beach in Kisumu. I have been there last year, and it was a really initially very small project and a very community-driven project. There is where I see like a real change, and that's where like all my pessimism disappears. And I'm like, okay, wow, I mean, this works. Co-production works if done in the right way. And what inspired me when Alfred, I think, said like it's tough in the beginning, it requires time, and it's frustrating at times, and you fail, but then when you establish this initial movement, and then in the end it all gets so smooth, as opposed to the top bottom when you start very smooth and then at the end you have to deal with so many issues. Yeah, that was so inspiring that it works, and I was very, yeah.
What has inspired you, Jakub?
Yeah, it was a talk from Debra, especially the claim for the new social contract, and I think it has to do with the distribution of power and with the way of the leadership, and that's connected with the second inspiring talk that I found, and it's the talk from Hans Abrahamsson, because I feel like he really is the kind of leader that I would like to follow, and that takes care of the people in sort of that way.
Hans, something else that had inspired you, that you know felt, well, this was really cool, and this was...
Actually, it was the fact that I realized that the co-production process is a process where the people are prone to do more than is expected, and when you work on more than is expected, then you actually improve the whole system. And I believe this is done because of the people. They get involved, they start to own the ideas, they start to own the project, and then they contribute and they improve the whole systems. Rather than if they were given an order, then they just fulfill the order and they don't even feel responsible for doing that.
What has inspired you?
More or less the same kind of things that I can hear about projects and going on and ideas developed that actually leads to very positive outcomes. It's very good to talk about them as well. It's very easy to be very critical and pessimistic about these kind of issues that are quite hard to handle, and also when you involve very many different kind of actors, as we were talking about, like from bottom-down perspective, there is a lot of issues you have to handle before it runs smoothly. But in this conference, we heard about a lot of good projects and a lot of engagement, and also that it's starting to work. Like no matter the scale on the project, it can be small ones or big ones, but that actually there is something going on. It's not like we stopped doing things because we are confronted with it, that it's difficult. There are new ideas all the time, and I think that is very inspiring to hear. So for me to take with me, so it's not always that we are at the place where everything is so hard and difficult and we can't really do anything, because there is actually very many things going on that leads to good things. So
this is the first of 4 conferences. We plan to have this annual conference through this phase 2. But what do you think what is important to keep? What is, for example, to keep to Kisumu? But are there things that are important to take care of and keep during these 4 years and 4 annual conferences? Also some ideas to Cape Town and even to Manchester, Sheffield. Jakub, what is important to keep?
I think it's important to keep the co-presence of people from academia and people from real practice. That's what I liked during the very first talks from the keynote speakers, when there was Debra standing, and there was Jonathan, and Debra was talking very practical matters, like the real things, whereas Jacques was talking the more romanticized version, and it was really interesting to have the comparison of these 2 people and their opinions and their approaches. So I believe this is what should be kept and strengthened in the future.
Do you think, Anna?
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that students and people should be added to the audience, and maybe use this stage as the space in between that we talked often about, where actually maybe a panel could be consistent not only of the people from academic background or practitioners background, but maybe we can mix backgrounds and create an opportunity on the very stage to bring up new ideas and actually, I don't know, use them as this neutral, that we discovered that we cannot call them neutral because there will be conflict, but they will hopefully bring out many good ideas.
Using these sessions and
using
the
these
dialogue
sessions
as a
the
way
very,
for co-production, using the presentation.
Yeah,
So,
and I think it's very important to include students from Kisumu next year, because I think many can benefit from this sort of conferences, and it's a shame that there are not more today, but yeah.
And you, Johanna, what do you think is the core that we should take care of or keep during these 4 years?
I think it's open up under these 2 days, like what are we talking about really, and keep on talking about that. What is this conference about really, and not stop at one definition and then keep on to that one. Like this might be a changing idea and changing concept, and keep on letting it be that. And that means you can invite students, you can invite NGOs, you can invite other kind of groups, because it is a concept you can talk about and learn about it from different kind of ways. So that I think is very important. And also maybe continue discussing what kind of groups are we focusing on when we talk about this. There's been a theme for like, I think 3-4 of those who be speaking during these days that were like, where you're focusing a lot on the like on poor people or something like that. And maybe there are other groups we should focus on and problematize about. Maybe that's also one good thing to change the focus for the discussion sometimes, to make it a bit new and challenge the way we are thinking about and framing these kind of questions. Yeah.
Good. Because we have some extra time, maybe there are some questions from the audience or something you would like to... We have lots of things to talk about here on the stage, but maybe to open up the possibility to invite some from the audience to ask something or... Yes, we have a...
I'm still trying to phrase what I want to say. Hello. Lisa, I'm a researcher here at Chalmers Architecture, and I agree with everything, and I love the way you phrase it, and you've kind of started something. I think that a lot of discussions in the breaks for me have been about the format, who is here and who is not. And I've appreciated and I have defended the format as a hybrid, because the non-academics have called it an academic conference, and the academics have called it a non-academic conference. And hearing both of those makes me think that this is something new, and maybe it cannot be everything at once. And had we opened the doors for the public, whoever they are in all of the groups, here, they would have come mainly from Gothenburg, and we would have set our discussions more in Gothenburg. But in 2 days, I've been in Cape Town, and I've been in Kisumu, and we've really been there because we've heard those short, brief examples, and it's been quite a diversity on stage. So for a 2-day conference, I think it's been actually quite a successful hybrid, which makes all of us, and both academics and practitioners, already question who wasn't here. And wasn't that the point? Maybe it wasn't the point that they were all here, but that we recognize that they aren't. That's what I've been thinking about. So I think it's the 2 first days of something amazing, and then the result of many, many amazing little things on Junga Beach, for example. That's my reflection.
Thank you. Yes, another question.
In the interest of turning this back on those of us who are academics, and talking about the role of the university in changing society and contributing to addressing these problems, what would, to the extent that you found things interesting here or approaches that were valuable, what recommendations would you make back to your own programs about how this kind of work can be properly supported and promoted? If you think that's what should happen in the context of your programs. do you have a lot of freedom to pursue these kinds of co-production type activities? Are the departments supportive of that? Is the university structure enabling this kind of things? Or are there things that you think that could be done to make it easier or better to do that kind of work?
Who would like to start?
Yeah, maybe I would like to start. I think in our programs we have pretty much of freedom to decide what we want to do, but this is also the responsibility that we have to find our own focus. What I would recommend is maybe more promotion of what is Mistra doing, because until this conference I have not heard about Mistra, and it's such a shame because it's directly on the Chalmers campus, the headquarters of Gothenburg. So this connection, right now, parallel with this conference, there is a course running. It's called Sustainable Development and Design Professions. And if the students of this course could take part in this auditorium, I think it would be really enhancing for us.
Did you hear that, David?
Can I use enhance that? Because I'm actually studying that course right now. So with my helping during these days, I also learned a lot about taking part of this conference. So yeah, it should be performed or taken up at least in master studies in architecture.
Well, I would like you to give you a chance also to think. But that's one example we could include. But is there other examples about?
What would I say to my university
Yeah.
or to Mr.
Yeah, or do you think? Again, is this, how could we include this more in the program? So do you think you have opportunities to in your program?
Well, I was thinking the other day, since I got to hear I got to meet a PhD student from Chalmers, and he was telling me about his work, and I thought to myself, oh my god, this would have been so useful to me if I had known about it during my master thesis. And then I had asked my tutor and my professor that if we had some sort of a portal at Chalmers where PhD students can publish their work for the sake of other students before it's being officially published. It takes a lot of bureaucracy to publish a paper for a PhD. It takes a lot of time, and I could benefit so much since I have decided to take a co-production process in my thesis, and there are so many experts at our school. So many experts that could have saved me a couple of steps. Not you learn best when you make mistakes, but maybe that wasn't. Maybe the time-wise I didn't have so much time to make so many mistakes, and I could have benefited from their work, and there is none. I cannot. So that would be something I would say to my school. Other than that, it's a great program.
What you said, which is also good to hear, that Mr. Urban Future is a big resource that you should use any more in the programs.
Yeah.
In the,
Definitely.
And I'm thinking about that as well. As I'm teaching right now, at the same time as I'm writing my thesis, and we don't have a lot of lectures or themes on sustainability or urban sustainability. We have a few ones, and here we have a lot of research going on. For example, if you're focusing on that, or even the projects that I as a teacher could use as an example, maybe. And so maybe like more teachers that in some kind of way have to deal with social sustainability, equality in urban context would really benefit. Maybe find something interesting and inspiring for students to work on themselves or discuss the problem and something like that. I could see that as a very good thing, and I will take some things from here with me. Not maybe all these very complex discussions, that depends on what level I'm teaching, of course, but like, what are the main themes, what are the things that are being discussed in these kind of get-togethers, what are identified as the main problems, for example, to like make them, the students following the discussion that is going on right now. At least that's just a thought I had.
So use Mistra more and using this international network. But I also think you're in the end of your education, and are you feeling prepared to work with these issues?
Can I start?
because I'm going to get a little older, so I look forward to the day that I can left over to the next generation. Yes, Johanna, do you feel prepared?
No, that's why I do a PhD. No, but no.
You can always study more. That's.
Yeah. But I don't really. I really cannot answer. I mean, if I'm ready. I mean, who could say they are ready? There are so much more to learn all the time. The thing that might be good is the more I learn, and at the place where I am right now, I'm able to take in a lot of different impressions, and that I think is a good thing. But like, if I'm ready more than that, I don't really know actually.
And you, Ena, are you prepared?
Now maybe I'll do a PhD. How does one answer that? I don't know. But I think if you are aware of the responsibility that you carry, and if you act accordingly, I don't know, and if you make it a part of your character to, as we said, as opposed to methodology, I think, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready. I have to be ready, yeah, but I'm looking forward to start working with that, definitely.
Maybe that conference has helped you to get more.
Yeah, it gave me a boost, definitely, too.
And you, Jakub?
I would rather ask, are you ready to work with these issues? Because you did so much research on that, and the research is still going on, and there's projects. And these issues are pretty complex, so the question might be more like, do we dare to do something now, rather than are we ready? Because, as you said, you are project by project, and you have to do something, so it's rather about starting the action than learning, because I think learning is through the whole life. I don't consider when I get the degree that I'll be ready. I will still continue learning. It's more like start taking the actions.
We have one question, and then we should try to summarize. But please.
Yeah, I have a microphone with a comment, an answer to your question actually. Because in order for you to have a job at this field outside of academia, there needs to be a current of working with social sustainability within urban affairs on the market. And coming back to what Lisa was saying before, I suppose I represent a very unrepresented group of people at this conference with my NGO background and now working as a consultant. But what I want to say actually a positive thing, because I think that the fact that these people are not that represented here doesn't mean that there isn't co-production happening in the industry. We just need to make more of it happen, I guess.
We talk a little bit about things that are important to keep, and you talk a little bit about that you would like to invite students to Kisumu. Are there something else, some advices or idea you would like to send over to the next year's host of the conference in Kisumu? Or something. Think about that and don't forget this. This was a really good thing. Try to repeat that in Kisumu. Well, what you said, Jakub?
Well, I think this conference could be used to recruit more people to be involved with the Mistra, to use it to gain new activists. So because I think in this auditorium, there's, in my opinion, not that many people who are not yet involved in that. And it would be good to invite people who would be prone to start working after being influenced by the conference, to start working with Mistra. And this way spread the spirit of what you are thinking about here. So like try to educate, use the next conference to raise more activists, I would say.
You do, Ena?
Yeah, I will just repeat myself, I guess. But I think it's very important to include students, especially from Maseno and Jaramogi University. And yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
And you, Johanna, what is important to take with us to the next year?
Maybe as a bit as Nazem Tabasada was talking about in the morning session, where he posed a couple of maybe provocative questions, but maybe dare to open up even more for those kind of questions during other conferences, like being open to that there might be a conflicts in views on things, and that might be an interesting starting point for maybe a session or something like that as well. And how to talk about how do we handle this, or how do we look upon this, and so on.
But to summarize, for doing this for the first time, you seem to be inspired and a little bit impressed. And of course, there are things that could be improved, and of course there are. But if you three should be the examinators of us about the conference, I think what's the grade? What's the conference grade?
Am I supposed to start because I'm grading already? Of course, it's absolutely. I don't really know. What word would you use in English for? It's not. What kind of scale do you have in the English system? I don't really know.
I think if it passed,
you passed. Yeah, I mean, it's passed. It's okay. It's like it's passed, but it has a lot of potential to develop even more. I would say if this had been a PM from one of my students, I would say, did you have spoken about, you have been talking about everything that's important, but maybe you could problematize a little bit more, and then you would have a high grade, maybe, even though I think it's very good for a first-time conference. I'm not.
Yes, I got what you mean.
Yeah.
I got all the stats with me, but I could problematize, reflect on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I didn't get graded for my. I don't believe in grades anymore. No. I don't know. I think it raised a lot of questions, at least in me, and I think that then it was a very successful conference. If it makes you question, if it makes you criticize, I think it was. And also, it's my first very serious conference like this, so I wouldn't know how to grade it. But certainly in me, it made me reflect a lot and also raise a lot of questions in my head. And I think then it's a successful thing if it does that, it provokes that. If it provokes that, yeah. So I'm very happy.
And then we have final.
Fast. No, I definitely agree with Ena. Personally, I took a lot of approaches that I could develop in the master thesis. I'm now thinking about my master thesis, what it should be about, what should be the topics, and I definitely got lots of input that I can investigate. And since I'm also working in the student union in project management, I know what does it mean to make an event for quite many people. So I really appreciate that you managed to. There's probably such a lot of work in the background to prepare the conference, to sit down, book everything, prepare these things. So definitely pass.
That's good. Otherwise, we have to stay here for a couple other days until we pass the conference. So, if there aren't any other questions, maybe we should give this to you. Thank you.